Hello and welcome to another video. I'm Maz and today I'm in Gloucester. And in today's video I'll be trying out this BMW E46 330 Ci. This car was kindly lent to me by my friend Eric, who has owned this car for a while now and has his own Insta page. Feel free to follow him on Instagram. And if you are an owner of a BMW from this period of history and you'd like your car featured, feel free to reach out. A quick overview: the BMW 3 Series is BMW's compact executive car, or in this case a small premium coupe. But if you want the full lineage of the 3 Series, click on the top right hand corner of the screen or in the link in the description down below. In this video we're just going to focus on the E46, which ran from 1998 to 2006. Interestingly, the designer is also called Eric Goplan, who was under the stewardship of Chris Bangle. And from a styling perspective, I think this is one of BMW's finest design. Personally, I'd say this is my all-time favorite generation of 3 Series. Of course, that was the saloon that came in 1998. The Touring, the Coupe, and the Cabriolet followed suit. The Coupe and the Cabriolet in particular had the letter C before the I or the D. So in this case, this is a 330 Ci, whereas the saloon and the Tourings would just be known as the 330i. Interestingly, this is the 6-cylinder model. And to distinguish that it's a 6-cylinder is the chrome slats on the grille and the twin exits at the back. This was also one of the rare cases where BMW, for the facelift car, or the LCI, made the changes distinctively different. Normally, with BMW, their designs don't really change from the start, and then they just incrementally change midway. The range starts from the entry-level 316, which had a 4-cylinder engine, along with its 318 counterpart. Interestingly, with the E46, the 318 was a 2-litre 4-cylinder, but then the 320 was also a 2-litre, but with 6 cylinders. And then the 325i also has the same 6-cylinder engine, and then the 330. The 330 in particular comes with Vanos, which is BMW's variable valve timing system. And of course, sitting above the 330 Ci is the M3. Unlike its predecessor, the E36, the M3 was only available as a coupe or a convertible. If you wanted a 4-door M3, you couldn't. You had to go to Mercedes with their C32. And then the LCI came in around 2001 for the saloon and Touring, and then 2002 or 2003 for the coupe and convertible, where the indicator sweeps upwards, and in the case of the saloon you get a stripe on the tail light, and in the case of the coupe and convertible the tail lights are LED. Bizarrely, from then on, BMW would only give you standard tail lights when the car first comes out, and then gives you the LEDs once the life cycle impulse comes out. So same with the E46, the E90 and the F30. And finally, the E46 went out of production in 2006 to make way, well, in 2005 to make way for the E90, and then in 2006 to make way for the E92. And generally speaking, it is regarded as the last mechanical 3 Series, or the last traditional 3 Series. So here is the front of the BMW E46, and this is not the factory key. In fact, BMW did not use switchblade keys at all. Instead, here's what the factory key looks like with its very iconic rhombus shape. Interestingly, despite being very, very similar to its saloon counterpart, the headlights are actually different. Almost all of the body panels are different to its saloon counterpart. So if we look at this pre-LCI example, the bottom of the indicator is level with the bottom of the headlight, and you get this slight intrusion. With the saloon, however, you get the indicator here, and then you get the double bubble design from the headlight area. This particular car is an M Sport, which has this very good looking front splitter, and the M3 also has a very similar looking one as well. As I've mentioned, this is a 6-cylinder, so you got the chrome slats in this particular car. The BMW badge, typical. is faded. And this thing here is the pull for the bonnet. This was also one of the first BMWs to ditch the front hinge bonnet, as seen in the E30 and E34. You've also got a vent here on the bonnet, and if you get an M3, these vents would be surrounded by a bulge. And one last thing, the owner of this car has added aftermarket rings as well, which the E46 unfortunately did not get from factory. Coming around, here's what the wheels look like. These are aftermarket, but here's an example of what the wheel would have looked like from factory. Being a regular 3 Series, you get the indicator or the side repeater down here. If it was an M3, the indicator would be here, and in its place you'd get a vent. On this passenger side, the mirror is factory. Coming to the side, the design is once again traditional BMW coupe. It follows the lineage from the E36. There's no sunroof, so this would be referred to as a slick top. Here's the obligatory Hofmeister kink, and interestingly the rear windows pop outwards, albeit electronically. And being a notchback, you'd get better rearward visibility to the detriment of aerodynamics. Coming to the back now, there's the 330 Ci emblem, and being the coupe, the badge is in its regular position. If this were to be a convertible, the badge would be here to make way for the high-level brake light. Being an M Sport, this car has the lip spoiler. Being the pre-LCI, here's what the tail lights look like. This particular car has parking sensors, and once again, being a 6-cylinder, it has twin exhausts. Coming to the back, here's what the opening looks like. This is how much space you get, and here's what you get inside. That's the warning triangle, since BMW is German. You get some storage on the side, you get some underfloor storage, and here is the toolbox, though some of the tools are missing. If you need more space, the seats fold flat, and to close the boot, here is the grab handle. Just before we get inside, here's what the driver's mirror looks like. This is actually an AC Schnitzer mirror. AC Schnitzer is one of BMW's iconic tuners, along with Alpina and G-Power. Even coming inside is quirky. So if you get a very early E46, the door handle will open outwards. But before the car was facelifted, BMW have changed the grab handle so that it opens upwards, almost like an old-fashioned handle, like so. Being a coupe, it has the frameless windows. Once again, here's the iconic BMW lock pin and the pebble texture soft touch plastic. This was from a time when chrome door handles were seen as a luxury item. Being a sport, an M Sport I should say, it's got the fake leather or vinyl door cards and this fake carbon fiber trim. You also get these M Sport kick plates, and because it's a 3 Series at the end of the day, there are seats in the back, so time to get into the back. So to get into the back, simply pull on this lever, push forward, and as you can see, the seat not only moves forward but also lifts up. Easily slot into the back, and now I'm in the car. Pull this back, there we go. Sat inside now, I've got some headroom. Someone taller obviously would struggle, like a 6-footer. Knee room is very generous. Legroom is of course the same. Because this car is rear-wheel drive, here is the transmission tunnel, and because this is a coupe, there's only 2 seats in the back. That being said, you do get a center armrest. The leather feels very nice, though this is not the soft leather, I should say. This is basically the E46 equivalent to BMW's Dakota. The parcel shelf in this particular car is blue. These headrests are very, very yielding. And you get a little dome light here, and the bottom half is just the interior light when the doors open. And as I've mentioned, there is the Hofmeister kink, and these windows pop outwards. No rear seat vents in this car, but you do get nets behind the seats and a little ashtray in the back. That being said, you do get a coat hook on both sides. Now coming inside, obviously this is where it feels a lot nicer. So here is my point of view. It's got arguably the most iconic BMW steering wheel. The M Sports don't have the little gap in between, and I think on the LCIs this section will be in silver. If you get an ES trim, which is like the very base model BMW, you'd get the steering wheel, but you wouldn't get any of these buttons. And if you don't have the multi-function steering wheel, which this is referred to as, that means you miss out on cruise control. This is the first BMW I'm filming with a manual gearbox. All pre-facelifts bar the M3 came with 5 speeds, but if you get an LCI with a 6-cylinder, you get the bonus of having a 6-speeder. An M3 was not needed if you wanted 6 gears. Even back in the days, you got your cold, hot HVAC override, so if you put this into its hottest mode and then turn this to cold mode, other way around, you can basically override this entire system and have cold air coming through here with hot coming out on the other vents. BMW Business CD as it's called. You get a massive on button. Here's the everything is easy to press if you've got very big fingers like I do. And in the later cars you did get a screen here, and then it would pop out if you wanted to slot in a CD or a cassette. Once again, the center console is angled towards the driver, and even though we're in a coupe, you get 4 switches for the windows. If I were to operate this, right now the car is off, this would pop out the rear windows. Here's the handbrake, and neatly integrated is the armrest, which has this little cutout so it doesn't get in the way of the handbrake, like so. If you want, there is a tiny storage bin here, a very tiny storage bin, and this also moves out of the way, so if you want you can have your coin holders which slot in here, or a little tray here. And most European models had the tray here, but the owner of this car had them swapped to the cup holders, which were more common on the North American models. There's your lock and your hazard, which are still together in modern BMWs, albeit between the centre air vents. M Sport cars have the M logo on the gear selector. Open here, you've got your ashtray. Press this, you've got another storage bin, potentially for sunglasses. This button here opens and closes the rear window curtain. And of course, being a BMW, it lets you turn off your dynamic stability control. Obviously you got your glove box here, which is very big. And you get another one on the driver's side. And look how well dampened that is. Here are your dials. Being a bigger engine E46, you get these silver trims around the dials. And being a coupe, the dials are grey as opposed to black. And strangely, the speedo starts from 10 as opposed to 0. And it stops at a not so round 155. Though that being said, that's what most German cars, due to gentleman's agreement, are limited to. And one thing I forgot to mention, with BMWs, in order to get it to reverse, you have to really push it in to reverse. Some manufacturers you push down to unlock reverse. Some have a ring pull here, but in this one, it's just brute force. Here's the headlining. Nothing much to talk about. Here are the vanity mirrors with a slot for notes, and there's a light here, but obviously the car is off, so it's not really going to work. The passenger has a fixed grab handle, and for the drivers you just get the blanking pieces right here. And because it's a manual, you get 3 pedals. And of course the BMW floor-mounted accelerator. Unfortunately, this car predates the seatbelt butler. So that's the exterior and interior done now, so let's see what this car is like to drive. So, seatbelt on. Again, this was before the seatbelt butler was a thing, so in its place it goes. Clutch in, because the car's in gear. Key into the ignition, and car is warm, so let's quickly drop the windows. So give it a few revs. No soft limiter, rev goes all the way to the red line at 6,000 RPM. And it feels very, very smooth as well. So, into first, handbrake down, and off we go. So from first impressions already, the clutch is very easy to locate. Some cars, the biting point can be very vague, but in this one I'm glad to say is easy to find. This was also from a time when BMW did not do those stupid indicator stalks, so that's very good. And I forgot to mention, the steering wheel adjusts manually, so that's reach and rake. So let's put that back in its place. And so far the manual gear selector does feel very good. And once again the 6-cylinder is very, very smooth. And on to Eastern Avenue. The dials, they're very clear and easy to read. And I really appreciate that the speedo reads in increments of 5. And yeah, this manual gearbox does feel very good to operate and gradually come to a stop. And one thing I like about the clutch pedal is I can comfortably use it as well. Some clutches where releasing it is too far, and if I get the release right, then the biting point is too high up. But in this, I am perfectly fine. Also, I really like how well dampened these indicators are. And into Eastern Avenue. There are the odd rattles in this car. That's actually my watch. But it's all minimal. I forgot to mention, this particular car has a fire extinguisher underneath the passenger seat. Off we go. Not much stop-start going on in Eastern Avenue, but operation-wise it feels very smooth. It's the kind of manual I can easily drive around in the city, if it still lives up to my claim. Right-hander. Shift down a gear. Shift down another one. Down to second. Steering is a little sloppy, at least compared with the E30 before it and the E93 after it. So that's probably one of its weak points, though really in isolation it does very well. Speed bump. And of course, being a sports suspension, that's just the fire extinguisher rattling. These bumps will come through, but personally I'm absolutely fine with that. And I can still cruise in top gear, which is 5th gear in this case. I'm sure those who wanted a more comfy and more isolated ride would go for one of its key competitors, such as the CLK. In fact, saloon-wise, the E46 had so many oppositions, such as the W203 C-Class, the B6 Audi A4, the first generation Lexus IS, the Jaguar X-Type, the Volvo S60, and the Saab 9-3, and a few more as well. However, in coupe form, there is no direct rival. I mean, there is the CLK Mercedes, but that was at a higher price point and was technically sat between C-Class and E-Class. And whilst there was an Audi A4 convertible, there was no coupe A4. A coupe Audi of that size wasn't really a thing since the Audi 80 discontinued and only made a return when the A5 came, which was after this car's production cycle. Actually, there was the Nissan Skyline V35 or the Infiniti G35, but that never came to Britain. So yes, at least here in Britain, the coupe E46 was classless. Let's turn on the lights. There we go. Really like that iconic BMW warm glow from the dials. Into the city already. A few squeaks and rattles coming in, but I'm just repeating myself. Maneuverability. Yes, it does corner very well. Rattling fire extinguisher. And like I said, there is a slight loss of crispness to the steering. You wouldn't really know that until after you've driven its predecessor or its successor. But like I said, at least BMW remedied that afterwards. Okay, leaving the city centre now. Generally speaking, the turnings are very good. So yeah, city driving wise, unless you're living in the centre of Bristol, is definitely doable with this 5-speed manual. Here comes that very sharp left-hander. Okay, off we go. What's the body roll like? Car stayed perfectly flat. Whilst this car does have the sports seats with these added bolsters, there are no shoulder supports, but this car doesn't really need it. And of course, if you want nicer seats, you'd get the M3. One final thing to check, see what it's like on the open road. So, well, leaving the centre of Gloucester right now and making our way towards the Brockworth bypass. And yes, I like to use Gloucester on all my reviews just to maintain a fair test. But one thing I'm surprised this 5-speeder does very well is keep the revs low when cruising about. So at 5th gear, doing 40, that's just over 1,500 revs. Up it to 50, which this is a 50 zone, is just under 2,000 RPM. And obviously we'll check 60 and 70 once we're on the zones. And because this car just uses a normal manual gearbox, there is no need for a drive mode, since if you want to drive dynamically, just change the gears a little later on the rev range. Off we go. Very dynamic, this car. And now I'm very thankful for the seat bolsters. We're on the national speed limit right now. Okay, back to top gear. So at 60, the car revs at 2,300 RPM, thereabouts. Up it to 70. It's only when you get to 70 things get a bit raucous. About 2,700 or 2,800. Obviously, being a manual, you have more control of when you can change gears. And this car grips very well. And well, we're on the bypass now. We're on the bypass now, so shift down. And change. Let's try that again. Third. So let's go higher up in the rev range, so about, yeah, there-ish. There's Vanos kicking in. So after 3,500 RPM, that's when the variable valve timing kicks in, and then the car really sings, and it does that very, very smoothly. Again, this is the benefit of the 6-cylinder engine, in this case the M54 B30. And I think this 6-cylinder in this car is what really makes the car, because I have driven a 2-litre 3 Series, a 320, albeit a newer shape, and I don't know why, I just felt a bit underwhelmed. It was competent, but it just felt underwhelming. So, shift down once again, and again, and again. Foot down, all the way to 6,000 RPM. After 4,000, that's when the surge of speed kicks in. I think this gearbox is more geared, pun not intended, to be smoother. I am curious to see what a 330 Ci is like to drive with a later 6-speed. So if you are an LCI E46 owner, whether it's a 320, a 325, or a 330, or even an M3 with a 6-speed manual, feel free to reach out. As I've mentioned, the steering just isn't there. There is a slight deadness to it. So there's me shaking the wheel and the car is still going straight. So yeah, back onto the bypass. Shift down to 3rd. Shift down to 2nd. 3, 2, 1, and... shifts are a little notchy, but they're not that notchy, and I think it doesn't really dent the driving experience at all. So I think a BMW with a manual is still worth it. Again, I haven't driven an automatic E46, but with the automatics found in the E30, the E93 and the F32, you can still have fun in those. Time to enjoy this car a bit more. Let's head back to the car park and finalize this video. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed watching me try out this BMW E46 330 Ci. My first time trying a BMW with a manual. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you are new, ring the bell to stay up to speed, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.